Have you ever stopped to think about what would happen if two of Canada's most powerful provinces suddenly decided they'd had enough? If Alberta and Saskatchewan actually broke away from Ottawa and crossed the border straight into Donald Trump's America? Because tonight, that idea, once dismissed as a fantasy, is being whispered in cabinet rooms, shouted in prairie town halls, and quietly analyzed in Washington and Ottawa alike. This is not a drill, and it's not a rumor you can shrug off. Alberta and Saskatchewan, together, carry the very lifeblood of Canada's economy: oil, gas, wheat, potash, cattle, and pipelines that stretch across the continent. For years, these provinces have complained that Ottawa takes their wealth, their resources, and their hard work, and gives back little more than regulations, restrictions, and insults. Prime Minister Mark Carney might not admit it publicly, but even his advisors are warning him. The West is slipping away. Now picture this: Donald Trump, back in the White House, louder, bolder, and more willing than ever to shake the world stage. And as the U.S. president surveys the chaos in Canada, he sees an opportunity, a dream he's talked about in private for years. The dream of expanding America's borders northward. The dream of adding not just one, but two new U.S. states, rich in energy, farmland, and fiercely independent people who already feel closer to Texas than Toronto. Alberta and Saskatchewan as America's 51st and 52nd states. Sounds impossible, right? Well, maybe not anymore. Behind the curtain, Trump has been dangling a shocking proposal. Faster pipelines to U.S. refineries. Billions in federal investment. Military protection guaranteed under NATO's strongest army. And perhaps the biggest lure of all, an escape from Ottawa's endless taxation and red tape. For prairie families who've watched their grain shipments stalled by federal rail policies, or their oil choked off by pipeline vans, the offer feels like sweet revenge. But let's not kid ourselves, this isn't just about economics. This is about power, identity, and the very survival of Canada as we know it. If Alberta and Saskatchewan walk away, what happens to the rest of the country? Does British Columbia follow them out the door? Does Manitoba get pulled into the new union? Or does Ottawa respond with every legal, political, and financial weapon it has to crush the rebellion before it spreads? I know what you're thinking. Surely Carney would never allow it. Surely Ottawa would fight tooth and nail. But here's the catch. Public opinion in the West is shifting faster than most people realize. Recent polls show majority support for greater autonomy, with a shocking percentage openly saying they'd vote for separation if given the chance. And when Trump's team quietly tested messaging in Alberta and Saskatchewan, the response was overwhelming. Not hostility, not dismissal, but curiosity. Imagine the symbolism: the stars and stripes flying over Calgary's skyline. American military bases stationed across the prairies. Alberta's oil and Saskatchewan's wheat flowing southward under U.S. protection, not Ottawa's restrictions. And the people, prairie families finally feeling like their voices matter, their industries celebrated instead of punished. To many, it feels like justice. But to others, it feels like betrayal. A betrayal of Canada's history, its unity, and its fragile identity. For generations, Canada has balanced East and West, French and English, liberal and conservative. If Alberta and Saskatchewan leave, that balance collapses. Quebec, long restless in its own right, may see its chance to break free as well. Suddenly, what was once the world's second-largest country is shattered into fragments, some pulled south to Washington, others drifting alone. Of course, Carney insists he has control. He insists Canada is united, that Alberta and Saskatchewan are simply venting frustrations. But how many times have we heard those reassurances before? Western alienation isn't a passing mood. It's decades of resentment, of being told by Ottawa what pipelines they can't build, what industries they must phase out, what taxes they must pay. And now, with Trump dangling the golden ticket of statehood, the pressure is reaching a breaking point. Picture yourself in the shoes of a prairie farmer or an oil worker in Fort McMurray. Do you stay loyal to a federal government that seems to ignore your struggles? Or do you take Trump's offer and join the most powerful economy on earth? That's the choice hanging over the prairies tonight. And make no mistake, this isn't just idle talk. Meetings have already taken place. Not official, not on the record, but quiet discussions between U.S. officials and Prairie leaders about what such a transition would look like. What currency would be used? How state legislatures would be established? Even how Indigenous treaties would be respected or renegotiated under U.S. law. The fact that these conversations are happening at all should send a chill down every Canadian's spine. Some call it fantasy. Others call it inevitable. But one thing is certain, the relationship between Ottawa and the West has never been this fragile, and Trump has never been this bold. Whether Alberta and Saskatchewan actually take the leap, or whether the threat alone forces Carney to finally change course, the West has leverage like never before. But here's the twist almost nobody's talking about. What if Mark Carney isn't just reacting, but already plotting his own counterstrike? Think about it. He knows the stakes. He knows that if Trump successfully lures Alberta and Saskatchewan south, his entire legacy as Prime Minister collapses. That's why some insiders whisper Carney has already reached out, not only to provincial leaders, but to Washington itself, trying to cut a secret deal before Trump can move the pieces on the board. Could Ottawa be bargaining behind closed doors, offering concessions, new pipelines, or even sweeping tax reforms just to keep the West inside Canada's borders? It's a dangerous game, because once Trump catches wind of that kind of desperation, he doubles down. Every sign of weakness is an invitation for him to push harder, to raise the stakes. And let's be honest, if Trump senses that Canada is vulnerable, he won't back off. He'll take it as a challenge. A test of wills between him and Carney. And here's the chilling part. Alberta and Saskatchewan are caught in the middle of this high-stakes poker match, their future being decided in private rooms far away from the people who live there. So, I'll leave you with this question. Are we watching the collapse of Canada or the birth of a new America? One thing's for sure, history is being written right before our eyes. And if you've made it this far, you know how critical it is to stay informed, because what happens next could reshape not only Canada, not only North America, but the world. And before you click away, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because this story is far from over, and I'll be here breaking down every twist, every leak, and every shocking revelation as it unfolds. You won't want to miss what comes next.